And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast, to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into today's recap of Pistons versus Nuggets, I wanted to give you guys a quick reminder about episode number 18. This week, me and Ryan drafted our all-time Detroit Pistons starting lineups. And I just dropped a clip today of me picking Cade Cunningham with the 5th overall pick. It was a wild move. It was a wild one. But it was a move I made, and I guess I have to live with that for when me and Ryan go up against each other on 2K and we test out those rosters. I'm looking forward to that. So make sure to go check out episode number 18 because that was a fun one. We show a little bit more of our wild side and comedic side. We get a little bit more hyper and typically we stay close to the statistics and the seriousness. It was fun to kind of break that bubble and kind of get wild with it. So we really enjoyed that episode. Without further ado, let's get into Pistons versus Nuggets. Tonight's final score was 119-100 in the Denver Nuggets' favor. In the third quarter, the Pistons kept it close and tied it up going into the half. And then in the third quarter, the Nuggets went a 9-1 run. That was their biggest run of the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, the Nuggets went on a 36-2 run during quite a big span of time. But one positive that happened tonight, we have a couple positives, but let's get into this first one. Me and Ryan have talked a lot about Jalen Duren and James Wiseman and the possibility of that duo. And tonight was our really first long, as far as minutes, look at them together. And we saw two lobs actually from Jalen Duren to James Wiseman. Typically, it's Jalen Duren on the receiving end of a lob, but we saw him set up James Wiseman tonight. And then the two of them combined for 29 points and 22 assists. And Jalen Duren actually came off the bench. James Wiseman's been getting the nod for starting at the 5 position. What did you kind of see from Jalen and James? And with what you saw, do you see them kind of getting more minutes together?
Yeah, absolutely. They're a perfect fit. And I think Weaver knew that pulling off the trade, giving up Sadiq and Kevin Knox to get him because he knew deep down Wiseman, Memphis product, Jalen Duren, Memphis product, both excel at what they are known for and being great overall big men with a ton of upside. And so we finally got to see them together. And it was exciting for me because I keep saying like those two are going to start together in the long run. And we finally see that. And you look how well they played together. They were in sync the entire time. One of them would pop out, one of them would go back in. And it was just, it felt natural and it felt normal. And that's what I like to see.
Yeah, totally. And the fact that we've talked about it before, but Jalen is a very sneaky good passer. And we've seen James Wiseman kind of struggle with the passing. But since Jalen Duren is such a skilled passer at this point in his career, I think that is another reason why they play so well together. Not just because they're such great suffocating defenders, not just because they're dominant in the paint, but because Jalen is unselfish, and I can tell James Wiseman likes a guy that will get him the ball.
Yeah.
James Wiseman loves having the ball. He wants it in his hands. It's very noticeable when you're watching games. Sometimes he can become frustrated at times, kind of see him shaking his head here and there. His body language his head's down a lot when he's not getting his looks. So it's great that Jalen is such a good passer because once he starts honing in on that skill, this duo is only going to start thriving that much more. And if these are two big guys that both want to have the ball the whole game, they're going to be butting heads, right? So now that we know Jalen is a good passer, he's willing to give up the ball here and there, that chemistry is only going to build. Corey Joseph is actually someone that I want to talk about. He's a guy that, has not necessarily been consistent in minutes this season, but he's a guy that when he plays for us, he's that vet role behind the scenes and on the court. He makes those savvy plays. Tonight was his 7th consecutive game with 10 plus points. What does it mean to have a former champion like Corey Joseph on the Detroit Pistons to be working with day in, day out with guys like Jaden Ivey and Killian Hayes? How crucial is that for a young team?
I think it's crucial when you bring in a vet in general. It doesn't matter what their experience level is in terms of have you won a chip or have you not. Like, look at a Pat Bev kind of player as an example. Any guy like that is going to help a young team in terms of what they're trying to do because they know what it takes to win. Even if they don't have a championship, they just know because day in and day out, they have to work their tail off to even stay on a roster, given how much older they are than some of these guys. Because some of these young guys can outplay them easily, but they just have the experience and knowledge to be able to put it in place. Whereas these young guys don't necessarily know what to do at times, and that hurts them in the end. But otherwise, they're more athletic, they're more agile, they're much younger. Their muscles are just more intact than a vet would. And Corey Joseph brings that leadership and knowledge that he's had throughout any stop he's had in his career. And he's bringing that to a young team. Like you see what he does with Killian. Killian has become an even better passer as the season has gone on with Corey Joseph in the lineup. Same with Jaden Ivey. And then you look at like RJ Hampton as an example in the just how he plays or looks at the game. Yeah, the box score may not jump out at you, but just seeing him in the rotation and seeing him get minutes, you can tell that Corey Joseph is slowly like easing into what RJ Hampton's trying to do, and you can see that vision there. So it's very crucial having a vet point guard or just a vet player in general to really teach these young guys.
We saw a very balanced scoring load tonight. Typically, when guys like Bojan and Burks are playing and they're not injured, typically they take a lot of that scoring load, especially Alec Burks off the bench. Bojan takes his shots, as we talk about a lot. But tonight, Killian Hayes, double-digit points with 10. Jaden Ivey, 14 points. Rodney McGruder, 20 points. We'll have to dig deep into that because I love talking about Rodney McGruder. And then Eugene Amarui, 11 points. James Wiseman, 14. Jalen Duren, 15. And then Corey Joseph with 13. I mean, that's a recipe for success. Most nights when your roster has double-digit points the way the Pistons did tonight, typically it's a W on the schedule.
Yeah, and the only negative outlook on the Pistons game tonight was the turnovers. The turnovers were the crucial impact because honestly, at points, you're like, oh, yeah, they can beat the Nuggets tonight. But then you keep turning the ball over and it's like, how are we still in this? But otherwise, when you have a bunch of your guys going out there and scoring double digits, it is a recipe for success. When one guy like Bojan goes off for 30 and then a couple others go off for double digits, it's like, yeah, you can win at times, but I'd rather have a team compete completely than rather than have like one guy or two guys go off. And it's like the one or two guys, you can easily lock them away and focus your game plan on them. And then that kind of affects the rest of the team because it's like, wait, we were just putting our entire offense through Bojan, and now we have to learn how to retool our offense to try and win this game. Whereas when you go in with not a guy out there in terms of, oh, he's going to be the hot hand tonight no matter what, that allows everybody to do their thing. And this group that we have built, all of them are very unselfish players. And that in due time is going to be very influential in how good we are.
Rodney McGruder tonight, I talked about wanting to highlight him. 20 points, 8 rebounds, 6 of 10 from the three-point line, and then 7 of 15 from the field on 34 minutes. Now, I hope you saw this. Rodney McGruder drilled a 3 right in front of the Denver Nuggets bench, and they must have been chirping at him or something, and he just stared them down heading into a timeout. Like, it was so awesome. It's cool to see a guy like Rodney McGruder in his bag because he's kind of like a success story, right?
Yep.
We know he's not going to be a superstar. We know he's not going to be anything really than what he has been this season. But to be a pro's pro and to step up the way he has just been so fun to watch as a fan of the Pistons.
Yeah, and keep in mind, majority of Pistons fans don't know this, and majority of fans in general don't know this about him, but he went undrafted out of Kansas State, then started playing basketball in a Hungarian league of all
Hmm.
places, then worked his way up from G League team to G League team, then got a chance with Miami, and then gets a chance with the Clippers. The Clippers move him to Detroit, and here we are. And
Yeah.
so he's really had to work his tail off to get where he is. And then the fact that he knows his role with us and he's fine coming off the bench and not even getting minutes most nights, and he's happy with that, that's awesome. Because most of the guys doing what he's done are like, give me the minutes. I want to play. But he's very unselfish in that sense. And that goes back to my unselfish comment. And so when you have a guy who everyone expects, like, oh, he doesn't play, that means he's not good. No, that's not always the case. Rodney McGruder is just in a situation where he's fine with what his role is. He's 31 years old. He's up there in age-ish, and he's fine just coming off the bench when he needs to. And he just wins. No matter what he does, he works his tail off. If he plays 1 minute, if he plays 34 minutes, no matter what, every single second he's in the game, he's going to work his tail off, and we saw that tonight with the 20 points.
Totally. I totally agree. Another point that I wanted to make about Rodney McGruder tonight, not necessarily involving the box score, was the crowd at one point was chanting the refs suck. I know we both are always watching the way refs call games. You know, there's a couple things that we are always watching as like not analysts, but guys that commentate on the game of basketball. And the refs tonight did seem to sway the Denver Nuggets way. Now, there was one specific call, and I want you to fact check me because sometimes I need to be fact checked. Rodney McGruder has a loose ball foul, I believe, when he actually didn't even touch anybody on the rebound. Is that correct?
I believe so. There was
Yeah.
also that the one layup, I believe, by Michael Porter Jr., and they called the foul on Killian, and Killian was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah,
So,
it's crazy. It's just like, and I know, like, yes, we said it earlier. The Nuggets are for sure the best in the West, more than likely the best team in the NBA. I know they're going to get calls, right? They got, Jamal Murray, who's a savvy vet at this point that knows how to get calls. Nikola Jokic, 2-time MVP. I get it. They got some guys with, a huge resume. But it seemed that every call really did go to the Denver Nuggets way. And it's just to show that when teams have that playoff experience the way the Nuggets do, I mean, they've been hovering around, making through, every series in the playoffs these last couple of years. You learn how to like get those little calls and turn into such savvy players. It's so frustrating.
yeah, but then you also look at like an example of the Detroit Pistons currently. We are 16 and 55. That is not good. So
Yeah.
it allows refs to go like, okay, we don't have to make sure we're on point with this game. If this was Nuggets versus Celtics, oh, they're going to be on point. They're going to make sure they're getting every call right, and they're going to review it if not. But in a game like this, it's like, yeah, it's Detroit. Yeah, they're not good this year. They haven't been good in a while. So we can kind of favor the Nuggets a little bit. Plus, if we favor the Nuggets a little bit, we could end up reffing more in the playoffs and build our resume up a little bit. Not saying that the refs are purposely changing the outcome of the game to better themselves. I'm just saying you look at it from that perspective and you can understand why a game is called where it's called. But honestly, some of the calls that were called tonight were bad. Some of them
Yeah.
were good. Some of them were obvious fouls. And majority of the time, yeah, our team, we foul a lot. We're young, we're inexperienced, and we jump no matter what. Like it doesn't matter who you are. You could be Rodney McGruder, you could be Corey Joseph. You're still gonna jump. It's a natural instinct. It happens throughout anybody in the NBA. And so we're just at the wrong part of the stick tonight.
Right. Yeah. I mean, fouls have been something the Pistons have struggled with all season long. It's going to be something they struggle with for probably many years. The Pistons' final total with fouls was 21, and then they finished with 17 turnovers. So if you're counting just regular turnovers and fouls into the overall turnover total, which some box scores and media outlets do combine those, that's 38 turnovers on a game. And that like hurts because that's like more, it's more than like what you could ever possibly want. And like it stinks tonight too, because the Pistons, like we were saying, were so balanced offensively. They set themselves up to win, but then didn't necessarily even have turnovers in inopportune times. They just had them consistently all game long. I wanted to point out too, typically the Pistons do struggle in the fourth quarter, but not necessarily offensively with like total points in a quarter. Typically it's just like we just mentioned, like a bad foul here and there and maybe back-to-back turnovers. And that's why, we lose some momentum. But tonight the Pistons only had 14 points in the fourth quarter to the Nuggets 33. And a guy that really led the charge for the Nuggets in that fourth quarter was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, former Pistons product. 20 points, 2 assists, 1 rebound, 4 of 7 from the three-point line, 7 of 15 shooting on 29 minutes. I was always a fan of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I'm not shocked that he's the guy that kind of put us away.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Nuggets roster, they have 4 former Pistons on their team. Reggie Jackson, Ish Smith, Bruce Brown, and KCP, of course. And so none of them have any resent towards Detroit other than probably KCP, given that he had a DUI and then we released him kind of thing. But like KCP, that's just him doing his thing. He goes out there and balls out every single night. Whoever he's played for, you look at his time with LA, like he was one of the guys on that team. If not, okay, he can't be the guy given that you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but I'd argue he was the number 2 option on that championship team behind LeBron. But yeah, so KCP knows how to score. He's a shooter. He knows how to win games. And of course, he's going to want to put on a show in Detroit where he started his career, because who wouldn't want to put on a show where you started your career? That'd be cool.
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of Pistons fans still love him like we do. And so he just wants to go out there and ball out. And that's what he did tonight. And now it's kind of hard to limit a guy like him when you also have to focus on the Joker or Jamal Murray or Aaron Gordon or Michael Porter Jr. The list goes on. Denver's stacked. You really would have to focus on Jamal Murray and Jokic, but otherwise it's kind of hard containing Michael Porter Jr. or KCP or Bruce Brown on given nights. And so that's just the difference between the Nuggets and the Pistons. Is the Nuggets are a clear-cut number 1 seed, best team in the NBA, where Detroit, we have a mixed up lineup because we're without key guys. But then on top of that, we're also young and inexperienced. So that plays in part. But so it's kind of hard to contain a KCP when you have to focus on the big dogs.
X factor tonight was definitely honorable mention was definitely KCP, but of course we got to talk about 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic, the Joker. 30 points, 9 assists, 10 rebounds on 14 of 18 from the field. Oh my goodness. He's so efficient. You just have to make mention of him when you play the Nuggets, just because he is just I don't even want to say dominant because I don't even feel like that's the right word for him, because he's not a guy that you necessarily feel like is scorching you. But then you look at the box score or the Nuggets go on the run and he's the main factor. It's just like his game just comes and flows into the game.
Yeah, he no matter what he does, he wins. Like at the end of the day, he can shoot, he can pass, he can get boards, he can block shots, he can get steals. He just can affect the entire game as a whole. And that's what I love about him. He's just one of those guys where he doesn't need to be all over media. He just needs to go in there and do his thing. And that's it at the end of the day. And so that's what I love about him. And like the fact that he just sits there and takes a jump shot rather than backing the guy down in the paint, which he can clearly do given his size. But he'd rather just take the jump shot, and he makes it because he's that good of a shooter too. So when you have a second round product that's bloomed into a superstar in Nikola Jokic, you can kind of do whatever you want. And
Right.
he's just one of those guys that no matter what it is, he's going to go out there and work his tail off. He's kind of like a Rodney McGruder in that sense, but just he didn't get a triple double tonight. I will add that, which is good. We kept him from a triple double, which he's averaging,
Yeah.
but he still had a great game.
Yeah. One of my favorite NBA clips is, I'm not sure what Denver Nuggets teammate flew out, but when he won his first or second MVP, they flew out to his home country, and he like owns like an elk farm, like an elk farm or something like that. And his teammates got his MVP trophy. Jokic doesn't know at all yet, and he's on his farm. His teammates right outside his house, and he comes riding on a horse up to the house, and he's like in work clothes, like, and it's the off, obviously it's the off season, and then he's just like, oh, like you're here, and he hands him his trophy. He's like, oh, this is kind of cool, I guess, like, okay, I'll take it. Just that's one of my favorite clips because it's just so random, and he's just such a normal guy, but he just goes out and just dominates every night, and I love it
He's definitely on track for his third MVP in a row.
for sure, especially averaging a triple double. Come on. Any last takeaways from you, Ryan, from tonight's Pistons versus Nuggets game?
Stop turning the ball over.
Yeah.
Well, but also it's just an interesting fact, like a fun fact. Jokic is the would be the third player in NBA history to average a triple double outside of Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook did it for 4 seasons consecutively, which is very impressive. But still, he'd be in line in the conversation of 2 great NBA players of all time.
Absolutely. I had no idea Russell Westbrook did it 4 seasons. I thought he just had that one. That is incredible. I don't know why I didn't realize that, but like,
yeah. So
dude,
when people call him Russell Westbrook, shut up. He's good.
Right. I completely agree. Dude, Russell Westbrook, the fact that he did that and isn't, it's a hot take, I feel like. But the fact that he did that and isn't in like the conversation of like one of the best to ever do it is crazy to me, because like that is insane to average a triple double.
Yeah.
What?
In 4 seasons?
Yeah.
That's so hard to do.
Well, that will do it for tonight's Revved Up recap of Pistons versus the Denver Nuggets. Tonight's final score was 119-100 in the Denver Nuggets' favor. Before you guys leave, I want to give a quick shout out to Grind Clothing Co. In this video, you would have saw Ryan wearing one of Grind's designs. So if you like that design or you like something to that effect, go check out their Instagram and go buy some merch from Grind, because they got some great designs and much more designs even than that. So you can always find something for whatever taste of style you have. We will see you guys in the next Revved Up recap. Peace.